Revelation 20. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection, the one that's already taken place. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power. But they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city. But fire came down from God out of heaven, and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast in the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are already, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever, an age and an age. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God. And the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books, according to their works. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them. And they were judged, every man according to their works. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. Whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. This is one of the shortest chapters in this amazing book, and yet it is one of the most amazing of all its amazing chapters. This chapter, although one of the shortest, covers one of the longest periods of time covered by this book. Because this chapter follows the Battle of Armageddon in the 19th chapter, in which Satan and the Antichrist and the false prophet and the forces who have accepted the mark of the beast, this Antichrist, devil man, Satan in the flesh, one world dictator of a one world tyranny, reign of terror. In the 19th chapter, they are all defeated by the forces of heaven, by a triumphal charge upon white horses out of the sky, an invasion from outer space. An invasion from outer space takes place. You and I and Jesus, those of us who love the Lord, will come charging out of the sky upon white horses. You say, oh, what do you mean? White horses? Well, what does God need if he's so supernatural and miraculous that we can be up in the sky in the heavenlies and in outer space in the first place? What in the world does he need with horses? Well, there's just something magnificent about a horse. God created horses. God sculptured the first horse out of the dust of the earth and made it a living creature. And he made it the way he made it, purposely designed perfectly for man to ride. Beautifully. A horse was made for man to ride. Look at the shape of the horse. If I had one here, I'd show it to you. But its back is perfectly shaped to take the stride of man, astride. And then its neck rising just in front of him, with its head just before him, so that its head is almost on an exact even level with the head of man, but no average man is just tall enough to see right over the head of the average horse. Perfect. Just made perfectly to size, made to measure, to fit man. Man was not made to fit the horse, but the horse was made to fit man. Throughout the world, even today, horses are still used by many military forces, cavalry forces, police forces. And it's said that there's something about a policeman on a horse galloping through a city street or nudging a mob back away from wherever they aren't supposed to be, that gives a policeman a certain majesty, a certain grandeur, a certain authority, a certain power that a man on foot, a policeman even on foot, cannot have. Many cities, even the United States, one of the most modern cities in the world, have a horse-borne police force, a segment of their police who are mounted cavalry, mounted police. And of course the famous Canadian police are called the Royal Mounted Police, with those beautiful red coats. And I remember when I was a boy, I used to thrill to read the continued stories in Boy's Life magazine about Renfrew of the Royal Mounted Police. He was a royally mounted policeman atop a royal horse in that Horsemen's Corps of Royal Mounted Police of Canada. Her Majesty's Royal Mounted Police, and they look royal in those gorgeous, beautiful red coats and those broad-brimmed hats, sitting dignified, majestically upon top of a gorgeous, beautiful mount, ready to run at a moment's notice, ready to run almost as fast as an automobile, faster than a chariot nor a wagon, nor any kind of animal-drawn vehicle, that's for sure, and able to climb into places absolutely inaccessible for any kind of man-made vehicles, in the most precipitous of mountain trails. I can remember when I used to ride horseback every evening, just before sunset, I would ride out and try to find our cattle to bring the cows in for their evening milking. And I wore out on the ranch in Texas typical cowboy jeans and a very thick leather jacket. It's a good thing because our dear horse was a little skittish about getting saddled. And almost every time that thoroughbred, as I would saddle her and try to pull, then reach underneath her belly to get a hold of the cinch belt from the other side, having thrown the saddle on her back. You throw the saddle over, and one side of the belt hangs down on the other side, and you have to reach under the horse's stomach to get a hold of the cinch and to bring it up and put it through the buckle or the cinch ring on this side toward you. And she either had a very sensitive tummy, like some women, and perhaps she thought I was getting too fresh as I reached my hand underneath her tummy. And just as I was stooping down in my thick leather jacket and my cowboy hat, 10-gallon Stetson, and reaching clear over about 3 feet to the other side of her where the cinch belt was hanging down to get it, she would almost always take advantage of this opportunity to turn her head around and give me a nip right here on the shoulder. She was a rascal, like some of the rest of you women. She apparently didn't appreciate my loving, tender, gentle touch and care. Well, she was used to running pretty wild out on the plains and through the woods of the ranch, and we even had a little problem sometimes rounding her up to ride. But I'd get the boys out, and we'd find her, and usually I'd have them find her sometime during the early evening hours so they could drive her back into the corral. The corral is a small fenced area in the barnyard where you can drive cattle or cows or horses or even pigs, whatever you want, where you can get them under control and get a hold of them. I advise you don't try to get hold of any pigs, though. I don't know whether you realize what pigs are, but they are little monsters. And a good-sized boar has huge, long tusks like this, huge, big teeth in those powerful jaws that can crush your arm or your leg just like that. I've watched this happen. I've thrown a dead goat to our pigs in the pig yard, and that dead goat would have completely disappeared, bones and all, within just a few minutes. Those powerful pig jaws, boars and sow jaws, would come down crushing those bones and grinding them powder and eating the whole works. Head, skin, bones, meat, everything, within a few minutes. So the little pigs may look very cute, but I advise you to steer clear of the big ones. They can weigh half a ton. So heavy that they come charging at you, nothing can stop them. So heavy that when a mother has a new set of little babies, which can number anywhere from about 8 or 10 to a dozen, a litter, I think that's the word, litter. My son Paul often used to go out and sleep with the old sow in the barn. Well, that wasn't bestiality, but he was just a very penurious, scheming little Jew who wanted to make sure he didn't even lose one little piglet. So, when the mama sow was about to have her little piglets, he would go out and she would sleep on one pile of straw in the barn and he would sleep on another until he heard her beginning to give birth to those piglets. And then as fast as she delivered them, he'd scoop them away and put them where she couldn't roll over on them and crush them because she's so big and heavy. It's one of the most frequent accidents in hog raising is that the mama sow rolls over on some little pig and crushes it or smothers it. So he would stay there to make sure all the little pigs got born safely and were put around on the tummy of the mama on her bosoms, or many bosoms. Lady pigs have not 2 bosoms, but quite a few bosoms. I think it's about 8, as I recall. Or maybe it's a dozen. 2 times 4 or 2 times 6. Anyhow, they got enough to nurse an awful lot of little piglets. He'd make sure the mama sow didn't, this big half-a-ton sow wouldn't roll over on top of the piglets, because piglets were worth a lot of money. Leave it to the devil to have the dirtiest, filthiest, vilest, most contaminated, unclean meat animal almost in the world to be the easiest and fastest to raise and bring the highest prices on the market. That's hog raising. Of course, there's only one way to make money any faster than that, and that's, as the fellow said, to go into the not hog raising business. Did you ever hear about the not hog raising business? During the administration of Roosevelt, the famous FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, of the Depression, and the NRA, National Reconstruction Administration, and all the rest of the alphabet soup agencies that he created in his socialistic, communistic administration, in order to keep farm prices on pigs and grains and a lot of other things high, they used to, if the prices got too low, they used to burn the crops, or they destroy the hogs, slaughter them and kill them and bury them, or whatever. Slaughter them and sometimes smoke them or brine them or whatever, sold them. And then when that didn't do the trick, they would pay the farmers not to grow certain crops and would literally pay them not to raise pigs. And promise, now if you promise not to raise as many pigs as you did last year, if last year you raised 200 hogs, we'll give you so much money per hog you don't raise this year. If you, say, cut it in half, in order to raise 100 hogs, we'll pay you for all these hogs that you didn't raise. So during World War II, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's war to save the Jews, contrary to popular supposition, it was not. Neither the First World War, which was called the War to Save Democracy, and neither was it, as was popularly acclaimed during World War II, the War to End All Wars. It was Roosevelt's war to save the Jews. So, one GI heard about this over in France when he was fighting. He said, "Boy, you know what I heard? They pay you for not raising crops and not raising hogs back home nowadays. You know what? I'm going to go back there and I'm going to go into the not raising hogs business. At first, I'm not going to raise 50 hogs, and the government will pay me quite a bit for that. But pretty soon I'll get around to not raising 100 hogs, and they'll pay me twice as much for that. And then I'll not raise 100 or 200 or 300, maybe I'll not raise 1,000 hogs. And I'll really make a lot of money on not raising hogs." Just about as crazy as some of these government schemes, especially some of these socialistic schemes. Oh, thought you were a socialist. Thought you believe in sharing. Thought you believe in Christian communism. Thought you believe in sharing all things. Well, our kind of sharing, voluntary, loving sharing of what I have belongs to you and I'm going to give it to you, is a whole lot different from the communist type at the point of a gun. What you have belongs to me and I'm going to take it away from you. That's different.